He's opinionated.
He's a good feller, I think. Yeah, I like him.
He's unapologetic.
Well, of course, I think he's hot, but, you know.
He's not afraid.
I think this is the best year he's had so far in his career.
He's always real.
Finn believes he's an African leopard and likes to go by his leopard name, which is Shroud. He has strong feline traits and likes to run and hunt.
He is Brett Mason.
Welcome into another episode of the Freedom and Liberty Report with your host, Brett Mason. I'm glad that you chose, out of all the things you could do with your time right now, to listen to this podcast. I really appreciate it. Thank you so much. Transitioning things over, the podcast is, I've been doing too many things, and politics is my passion. Liberty and freedom is my passion. So I will occasionally do pop culture stuff, shows, but I'm just going to concentrate on what I know and what my passion is, and that's politics, freedom, liberty, and maybe more specifically, libertarianism. So here's how you can find us. We're at brett-mason.com, brett-mason.com. And you can get the podcast updated there. You can also download the app in either the Android or iOS app stores. Just look for the Brett Mason Show, BRETTMASON Show. Thank you for listening today. Today, we're going to be talking about why Hillary Clinton will win the presidency in the upcoming election.
Intelligence is sexy. This is the Brett Mason Show.
I'm going to admit to you up front that myself and people like me are probably the reason why Hillary's going to win. And I'll just be honest about it. I take full responsibility for it. And I am not ashamed, nor do I feel bad about it. In the last election, when we had maybe the worst Republican candidates, well, McCain was pretty bad. I love McCain. He's an American hero. He's a legend and an icon. He's a great American. Served his country valiantly. But his politics are they're just bad. They're just really bad. I thought that if he had won, which I kind of liked Sarah Palin at that time, it didn't take too long to figure out she's a nut job. She's really gorgeous, though. So it didn't take long to realize that wasn't good. And that year I voted Libertarian because I just didn't have a good option to vote for. Mitt Romney was just not an option. He just was not an option. I'm not really sure why people think we need a businessman to correct the financial woes of America. We don't need a business. We just need someone who will uphold the Constitution. We just need somebody who will limit the way expenditures begin. You see the president proposing bills now as expenditures. You see the Senate doing it, and you see the House doing it. But that power is supposed to reside in the House. The bills are supposed to originate in the House. They originate anywhere. Some guy that Obama knows in California is writing bills now. It's crazy. So, as hard as this may be for Republicans to hear, business is a big part of the reason that we're all suffering the way we are right now. Look, I'm all about free markets. I'm all about letting them do their thing. But if you're going to believe in free markets, and that's what all Republicans preach, oh, man, free market, free market, free market. Well, if that's what you're going to preach, when the free market fails, you have to let it fail. You don't come in and you don't take taxpayer monies and bail out businesses who were being shady and irresponsible, which is what happened with the housing crisis. So you may be saying, well, I don't think we should have done that. I'm a Republican. I'm against that. Well, George Bush is the guy that did it. He's the guy that started the bailout process. It continued under Obama. A Republican stood up in front of the nation and behind a platform and said bad things are going to happen if we don't write a check to these big businesses. Do you realize how crazy that is? Do you realize how insane that would be? Like you or I taking $1,000 down to the racetrack and betting $1,000 on the 5-horse to win. And if we win and it's 5-1, we'll get $5,000 plus our original $1,000 back. So we'll have $6,000 in our pocket if we win. If we lose, we'll cry about it, and our mom will show up and write us a check for $1,000 and go, oh, yeah, well, God, we can't have this. So there's zero risk. So the reason I'm on the debt and the financial part of it is because I think that's the thing that libertarians and Republicans can probably most closely identify with. Where libertarians and Republicans part ways is on social issues. Libertarians don't think it's any of your business what people do in their bedrooms, who they spend their life with, who they get married to. It's nobody's business. As long as they're not harming you, that's the libertarian philosophy. As long as they're not harming you, it's none of your business. And that's where we part ways, because Republicans like to tell people what to do. You like to pass laws, and you're really fond of passing laws based on Bible verses, which runs contrary to anything that was ever imagined in the United States founding. In fact, our founding fathers wrote at length on the dangers of having religion intertwined in the government. And they tried to propose a system of government and then write a document to protect that would keep that from happening. But nowadays, it seems like all Republicans shout that that's the answer. The answer is we need more laws based on Bible verses. And I'm sorry, that's not the answer. It has nothing to do with believing the Bible or not believing the Bible. That's just not our country. That's not what our country is, not what our country was founded on. Our founding fathers went way out of their way to make sure that didn't happen. So, you see, that's something libertarians we can't abide. We just can't abide that. So I have to concentrate on the financial aspects because Republicans and libertarians can't agree on that. And that's the one thing that could possibly save us, because it would take a special Republican, but I would vote for a Republican if I really believed that he would abide by the Constitution in nearly every way. It's very hard to find one that would do it in every way, but especially where finances are involved. So for everybody that's out there and I've got to have a ton of Republican friends, love them dearly. I used to be one of them. It's only been, 14 years ago. I was a staunch Republican, towing the Republican line. So I know these people. I was one of them. I understand it. I love them dearly. But there's always this woe is me. These Democrats are spending money like it's going out of style. We need a Republican president. And you hear it every time. You hear it every freaking time. So, let's just go back and review the national debt, shall we? Let's go back to 1980, when the greatest Republican who ever lived, according to Republicans, took office. Ronald Reagan. When Ronald Reagan took office, we had a $908 billion debt. $908 billion debt. Which is pretty big. But it was less than $1 trillion. Anybody that's listening right now want to just guess right off the top of your head what the national debt was when Ronald Reagan left office? Because all we hear is how Ronald Reagan, he cut taxes, prosperity increased, he didn't run up a bunch of debt, he kept all that in check, he was a responsible spender. When Reagan was president, boy, that was the good times. And admittedly, there was a lot of good times. A lot of those, his policies did have to do with. A lot of other ones, it didn't. Just like with any president. So I'm going to go back to $908 billion. $908 billion was the national debt when Reagan took office. Anybody want to guess what it was when he left office? All right, let's see if you're close. 2.6 trillion. 2.6 trillion. He nearly tripled the national debt. Ronald Reagan nearly tripled the national debt. So who do we have after that? We had Fabulous Bush. When did he come in? 88, 89 he came in? We'll just go with the 2.6 because that's 88. So we'll just go with 2.6. And what was it 4 years later? What was the outlook 4 years later? 1988. Anybody want to guess from 2.6? 3.6. He didn't do as bad as Reagan. Did not do as bad as Reagan. So we can say, thanks for that. Appreciate it. So 93 rolls around and one of the most maligned presidents of all time takes office. William Jefferson Clinton. When he took office in 93, the national debt was $4.4 trillion. $4.4 trillion was the national debt when he took office. 2000 was his last year in office. So 93 to 2000, I'm going to tell you something. You can malign Clinton all you want, but the national debt only increased from 4.4 trillion to 5.6. Only about 20%. Now keep in mind, Reagan nearly tripled the national debt. Reagan, the great Republican savior, nearly tripled the national debt. Clinton only added around 20%, looks like, to the national debt. So we moved from Clinton, and lo and behold, we get a new Bush in. He takes office in 2001, Bush 43. When he took office in 2001, the national debt was 5.6. He left in 2008. George W. Bush, one of the greatest Republican presidents ever. 5.6 trillion when he took office. $10 trillion when he left office. He doubled the national debt. Doubled it. So far, only two presidents, none of them have a good record, but at least Bush Sr. and Clinton only added, 20-30%, increased it by 20-30%. Everybody else has either doubled it or tripled it. And so in recent years, what have we heard? All that we've heard is Obama, the evil one. Obama, the evil one. Well, when he took office, $9 trillion was the national debt. At the end of 2014, it was $17 trillion. He didn't even double it. So far, it's less than double. Of course, we'll have to add 15 to his record. It'll probably double or just barely double. So he'll have about the same financial record as Bush 43, the great liberator of the national debt. What a great Republican conservative bastion of ethics and morality he was. And so people have the gall to ask me, how can you vote for a libertarian when you're a conservative person and that's going to split the vote up and them darn Democrats is going to win? I have just proven to you by example, because this is the main concern that I have. I don't want my money to be, I don't want my dollar to be worth 1/100th of 1 cent. when I'm 65, because I won't be able to afford anything. And if you don't understand the hidden tax of inflation, then you don't understand anything. You don't understand anything about economics if you do not understand the hidden tax of inflation. Inflation is directly related to the national debt and the printing of money to cover that situation. So I'm not going to give a long diatribe on how inflation happens, but that's why it happens. So if you don't understand inflation, I'll give you just a real quick example, okay? Just a brief example. Let's say that you started working at a job in 1999 to 2000. So let's just say you started then. Here in Alabama, where the average salary, I think, is around $35,000. So let's just say you had an average salary of $35,000. And you still have that same job. And let's say, through that time at your job, you're now, instead of making $35,000, you're now making $40,000. So you've got raises and, you've been with the company a while. You started at $35,000, now you're making $40,000. You haven't gained anything. You've actually lost $10,000. How? Inflation. For you to be able to buy the same amount of things, pay the same amount of payments, have the same amount of equity to purchase things with, a car, for example, if you wanted to buy an identically priced, identically comparable car in 2000, and you wanted to buy another one, same thing, comparably priced, identical car in 2015, let's just use the salary as the price of the car. Let's say it was a $35,000 car in the year 2000. That car, to have enough money to buy that car in 2015, you got to have, it's $40 shy of $50,000. So we went from $35,000 to $50,000. What all that money in between is money that you lost. Let's say you had it in a savings account. See, people like my mother, and I don't want to call her out, she does do some CDs, but she won't really invest. My grandmother was the same way. My grandmother would do CDs. She was getting like 1% or something. 1%, 1.5% or some kind of ridiculous low number on CDs. But she wouldn't invest in a healthy mutual fund. So let's say, let's bump it up to a number that somebody might actually have. Let's say somebody put into their retirement fund $150,000 not in a retirement fund, but in a checking account. So let's say I'm going to use my grandmother, for example. She kept a lot of money in the bank. So let's just say, and this is a made up number, let's just say she had $150,000 in a checking account. And in 2015, how much she would need to have for it to have the same purchasing power, for her to be able to live the same lifestyle, be able to purchase the same amount of food, the same amount of clothes, purchase the same amount of, same kind of vehicles, houses, everything, to maintain, not get better, just to maintain the same quality of living she had in 2000. You know how much money she had to have in 2015? And she's not here, God rest her soul, so it's kind of irrelevant, just using that as an example. She'd have to have $214,000. So you're looking at $64,000 the government robbed from you because of the national debt and the printing of money. If you had $150,000 in the amount of time from 2000 until now, 15 years, in 15 years, the government robbed from you $64,000. If you divide that by years, that means they robbed from you $4,266 every year. Now, that's not counting the money they actually robbed from you. That's not taking into account the money that they physically just come get from you that you can comprehend and understand. That's taxes. Most people are paying in the 15 to 20% range, depending on what you make. You may pay higher, but let's just say 15% for a person. So if the person was losing 15%, At $35,000, they were already losing 15% in taxes. And that's just income tax. That's not counting once you get the money. Then you start paying a sales tax and a state tax. So even more comes out. I mean, in Dothan, if you go buy something, you're paying 9%. It's right at 10%. So there, just add 10 to round it up. So you went from 15 to 25. There's 25% of your money out the door. 25%. On top of that, there's another 10 to 12% every year in inflation coming out. Does anybody understand the problem that we have now? Does anybody understand why life is sucking for so many people? Why you can't get ahead? No wonder you can't get ahead. You got a big cinder block tied around your neck and they're dragging you off the edge of the pier. So you got 25%. If you add another 10% to it to 12%, you're looking at somewhere between 35 and 40%. So this is not for rich people. This is not for big corporations. This is for Joe Blow, who's making $35,000 a year. Between inflation and the money they just come physically take from you, you're losing between 35 and 40% of every dollar you make. You're losing it. It's gone. History. Bye-bye. And then you wonder why I won't vote for a Republican. I have no evidence that I should vote for a Republican. And I say you, may not be you, but the person this podcast, the type of people this podcast is directed at, that's who I'm talking to. Republicans have a worse record on the national debt than anybody. Ronald Reagan nearly tripled it. He nearly tripled the national debt. Bush 43 doubled it. His dad didn't do quite as bad, added about 25% to it or something. Or increased it by about 25%. Him and Clinton are the best of the bunch. Clinton and Bush Sr. are the best of the bunch. If you had a clone of Clinton running today against whoever else, by God, I'd vote for Clinton. He'd be the one I'd take. Yeah, but he doesn't care what you do in your bedroom, and that's important. No, it's not important. The government is robbing you blind, and you think that's important? You think what Joe Blow doing 5 blocks down in their bedroom is important? When the government is stealing 12% of your money every year? So, people like me, when the Republicans put up their candidate, and not only is he not a Republican, he's a faux Republican. Mitt Romney was one of the most liberal people that ever walked the planet Earth with an R by his name. How they even let that happen, I don't even know. He wasn't a Republican. He wasn't a conservative. His record was long liberal. Democrat on every issue, from health care. You shout about Obamacare. He did Obamacare before Obamacare did Obamacare. That's where Obama learned how to do Obamacare, from Mitt Romney. And you wanted me to vote for him? You wanted me to vote him in? That's the guy you wanted me to go vote for, and you're making me feel bad because I didn't go vote for him? Come on, you got to be kidding me. No, I didn't vote for him. Ron Paul, on the other hand, one of the few people that said, hey, if it runs contrary to the Constitution, we're just not going to do it, whether that be related to money, whether it be to going overseas and bombing people. And people freaked the heck out. Oh, he's crazy. Ron Paul is crazy. Oh, my God, we got a crazy man. He thinks we should consult the Constitution before we send bombers overseas. What a weirdo he is. And then you get Obama in there, and then all I can hear from Republicans and Obama's entire terms, he violated the Constitution. He don't vote by the Constitution. He don't believe in the Constitution. If you wanted the Constitution guy, his name was Ron Paul. Yeah, he's a little quirky. He's not a nice, polished up little gem for you to look at that's pretty on TV. He misspoke sometimes. because he spoke off the cuff. He didn't have talking points. He didn't have a team of people giving him 3 talking points. And you got to hit these over and over no matter what question they ask you. When they interview Ron Paul, no matter what question they ask you, you hit one of these 3 points over and over. If they ask you about your pet cat, you turn around and tell them people need health insurance. If they ask you how your ma and them's doing, you tell them, my ma'd be doing better if everybody had health insurance. And that's what polished politicians do. And we get what we pay for. You get what you pay for. You fall prey to that crap and you think that's what looks good. And the guy that's not well-spoken, that actually believes in the Constitution, who's just a little goofy, not well-spoken, doesn't talk bullet points, doesn't have pretty hair, that guy you won't vote for. But you polished up pretty liberal guy with an R by his name, my God, you need to vote for him. Why are you not voting for him? Because I don't like losing 12% of my money every year. That's why. Do you realize if you invest now, just let me explain to you what inflation means in terms of your money. For you to stay even, if you have $100,000, for you to still have that $100,000 20 years later, you have to make 12%. That money has to generate 12% return. Interest. What are you going to invest in? It's going to get you 12%. People that play the stock market can get it. Your most conservative, solid mutual funds, if you can find one that's around 10%, that's good, and that's not guaranteed every year. 8% is excellent. So if you're getting 8%, well, we're only losing 4 now. The government's only robbing 4% from us every year because we're making 8 of it back on our mutual fund. No, you have to make 12% a year just to break even. Why not I vote for Mitt Romney? Because I don't like being robbed. I don't like being robbed. It's too hard. It's too damn hard to make money. Has anybody ever tried to make money? Am I the only one that's ever tried to make money? It's too hard. It's too hard to make. You trade chunks of your life for dollars. That's what you do. I don't think people understand this. When you go to work, you are trading a chunk of your life in exchange for money. And somebody's telling you 8 hours of your life is worth $150. And you're like, okay, I'll give you 8 hours of my life today in exchange for $150. Well, the government immediately comes and takes 15% of that away from you in taxes, takes another 12% of that away from you because of inflation, and then you get another 8, 9, 10% taken away from state, local, and city taxes. Well, bam, it turns out you wasn't worth $150 a day after all. You're trading chunks of your life for dollars. I just want my dollars to still be dollars. So, the name of this podcast was why Hillary Clinton's going to win, right? There's one Republican that I would vote for. Here's why she's going to win. Because people like me are just not going to vote for a Republican. We're just not doing it anymore. Because here's the fact of the matter. The country's on a fast track to hell no matter if it's a Republican or a Democrat. So to people like me who've wised up to it, it doesn't matter. People try to tell me, oh my God, but if you vote Libertarian and you allow that Democrat to win, oh God, the sky's going to fall. Yeah, it's going to fall. But newsflash, it would fall if there was a Republican in there too, and that's why I don't give a crap one way or the other. They're both the same. One of them touts a little bit on this end, one of them touts on the edges, they're different. Their central core beliefs about bombing foreign countries, printing money like it's going out of style, and funding government programs. The Republicans do it just as much as the Democrats. The Republicans do it in terms of tax breaks, loopholes, and stuff for big business. That's where they lose money. That's their welfare. See, people don't understand that. You see, here Republicans all been out of shape because of welfare. Oh, God, the Democrats is giving everybody welfare. People that don't even need it is getting welfare. The Republicans do the same damn thing, but they do it for business. Still, people that don't need it. They call it tax breaks and loopholes. And the big businesses have their lobbyists up there lobbying them. And then when you have something like a financial crash, when you have businesses about to collapse, who does the government take care of? They sure as hell didn't take care of the people. They took care of their big business cronies. And gave us some sob story about if we don't steal more of your money and print more money to bail these jerks out, The country's going to be in bad shape. So they both waste money like it's going out of style. They put different names on it, but all of them do it. So there's one Republican that me and people like me would possibly vote for, and that would be Rand Paul. Rand Paul is never going to be the Republican nominee. He's going to try. The Republican Party is not going to let him in there because he is not towing the Republican Party line, and it's a scam. The way our elections work now is a scam. You don't decide who is the nominee. You don't decide. It looks like you decide. There's straw polls here, and town meetings here, and Super Tuesday here. You didn't decide any of that. It's an illusion that you decided that. This huge machine called the Republican Party comes in and directs things. Man, they changed so many rules for Ron Paul to keep him from getting votes. And after he did as well as he did, which wasn't super great, but it was too much that it bothered him. As soon as that happened at the Republican National Convention, they had votes to change all those rules, and we can make sure that never happens again. We can never let a loose cannon in here. We got to make rules to where only a toe the line, party line guy can get nominated. We can't have that. So if Rand Paul was the nominee, I would take a chance on Rand Paul, and he's about as close as anybody I've seen that's in one of the parties. He's not his dad. He's more of a Republican than his dad. His dad's libertarian. His dad's full-blown libertarian. Rand Paul has a lot of libertarian leanings, but he's a Republican. I would vote for him. But other than that, I'm going to vote for whoever the libertarian is. So me and the other people like me, who conservatives would traditionally count on for our vote, we ain't voting for your stand-up, rhino, big spender, wolf in sheep's clothing guy with an R by his name. We're just not going to do it. And so that means Hillary wins. So be it. I don't feel any worse with Hillary being president as I would if Rick Santorum was president. Oh, God help us if Rick Santorum becomes president. He would start trying to legislate from the Bible. And I know there's a lot of people listening going, oh, that'd be good. Well, maybe he don't interpret the Bible just like you. And that's why our founders kept it out of the government. Because if the guy up there making the rules don't have quite the same interpretation as you, he mandates stuff based on it, you get screwed. Not to mention all the other people that don't believe your stuff at all whatsoever, and then you're like, well, everybody should believe that. Well, no, that's not what our country is. Our country's freedom of religion. So what would you say if you get up there and you get enough Muslim people in government to pass a law that's based on the Quran? You would flip your lid. You'd flip right out. Why? Why would you? It's the same principle. It's the same concept. It's just not your religion, and it would grind you the wrong way. Well, you think about how that would feel. Flip it around, and that's how all the people in the country who are American citizens but don't believe like you do, that's how they feel now. And that's why the Constitution and the country was founded on the proposition of separation of church and state. You can't legislate religion. You just can't do it. Rick Santorum would be off the deep end. He would probably write laws against everything except holding hands in public. Which might not be quite so bad considering some of the things that you see in public nowadays. I say that tongue in cheek, of course, because just because I don't like the way something looks doesn't mean that I should get laws to ban it. We've gone over 30 minutes. I shoot for 30 minutes on the podcast. I appreciate and welcome all comments. If you have a comment, you have a suggestion, you disagree, hey, comment on the Facebook page, send me an email. If you've downloaded the app, you can just send me messages right straight from the app. You can get the Brett Mason Show app in the App Store or in the Google Marketplace or whatever it's called. Just look for Brett Mason Show. And I'd love to hear from you. Share with a friend. Maybe I've enlightened some people on how inflation is robbing us blind. And maybe I've laid out a plan for what's needed, and that's for the arm to be twisted of the Republican Party, to be twisted to get them back in line, to be something that people like me can vote for again. Because as they stand now, I can't vote for them, nor would I ever, with the exception of maybe somebody like Rand Paul.
Download the free Android or iOS app. Search for The Brett Mason Show.